This is a third recording. I'm doing several of these because we hope to distill from them an understanding of how we can explain the parallelisms between the Mac environment and the Windows environment. So this is the program that I'm using to record. I'm going to click elsewhere, so just to put the Finder back in the window. Not sure why this happens. What is that? Oh. So this window is actually my VMware Horizon session with the window minimized or not occupying the full screen. So if I click in here, I'm actually manipulating what's going on in my virtual desktop environment. So again, the parallelisms on the Mac. This is the dock. In Windows, this is the taskbar. There are similar ways of anchoring or providing links to frequently used applications or files, if you will. An understanding of what happens when you click on this folder is in order. So the default is a list representation of my desktop. So their desktop is here, and there's a list of things that are populating my desktop. This UEM refresh is the list equivalent of this icon here, which is a shortcut to that procedure. Documents is a shortcut to the documents that exist, the default document directory in this folder. So if I go back to my Mac environment, when I go to the Finder, and I'm just going to do new Finder window because that's always a quick and dirty way to. So it's showing you a similar listing of these sort of default locations. There's my desktop, and there's the background of my desktop, part of which is my VDI session. There's a default place where my documents live, just as in Windows is the default place where my documents live. Right? There's a default place for downloads, as there is in the Windows VDI. Devices and locations. So what I'd like to explain here is the meaning of these two backslashes indicates sort of a server. So some network device. SRV-NESAD-FS01 is a NESAD file server. There are several folders associated with them, and they can be mapped to drive letters. In the case of the home, I've mapped it to drive letter H because I find that a mnemonic way of remembering that. I can type into this window the letter H with the colon and enter, and it brings up that location. So this idea of mapping to a network drive to a drive letter is important, because if we don't do that in advance, it causes many graphic applications to fail. So we know that there are difficulties associated both with SketchUp and Adobe Suite programs. So SRV-NESAD-I is the interior design folder. Dropboxes I've linked to the drive letter R, handouts to T. by default, there's a work or a W drive moniker that represents a work area on the desktop. So there's this convoluted label that is sort of a pointer to a work area on the desktop that can be accessed by typing a drive letter W. Right? So if I went up to this folder, call it Finder now, Explorer window, and type W, that brings me to that. And then architecture, that's simply a drive that exists on my machine. So the equivalent of this architecture here, from my Mac point of view, is the same as architecture here. Okay, it has, the Mac OS X has a different way of bunching, of organizing folders by, depending on how they're sorted. In this case, date modified. So the Windows tends to bunch together folders and then report file names. Mac OS X does everything in order. So I'm hoping that this will illuminate a little bit of the sort of parallelisms between the Mac OS X labels and references and pointers to the different areas, work areas in the work environment. Telephone. Okay.